The first thing Kalen Voss noticed when he stepped off the transport shuttle onto the diplomatic platform of the Jarelian flagship was that the air smelled like boiled celery and regret. "Welcome to the Accord Summit," said a tall, blue-skinned Jarelian with a voice that sounded like two rocks grinding together. "We are honored by your presence, Representative Voss." Kalen adjusted his suit jacket, already sweating under the high humidity atmosphere. "Thanks. Though you folks might want to crank up the AC next time." The Jarelian blinked slowly. "We do not understand the reference." "Forget it," Kalen muttered, wiping his forehead. This was humanity's first formal invitation to the Interstellar Dietary and Cultural Safety Accords, an annual meeting where species across the galaxy came together to discuss culinary exchanges, foodborne diplomacy, and, in recent years, a rising concern over what some called human gastronomic aggression. It all started when an exploratory crew from Earth shared a meal with the insectoid variant some 6 months ago. One bite of Carolina Reaper chili stew, and the variant ambassador had collapsed, convulsing so violently he cracked 3 of his thoracic plates. The footage went viral across a dozen systems. Now, humanity was on trial not for war crimes, not for environmental destruction, but for possessing cuisine so violently spicy it was being classified as biochemical warfare. "Representative Voss," said another alien, "this one gelatinous and glowing faintly lavender. We have reviewed samples of your terrestrial hot sauces. They contain alarming levels of capsaicinoids. These compounds are not only toxic to over 80% of known species, but they are also considered hallucinogenic by Jarelian standards." Kalen gave a tight nod. "I understand the concern, but I'm here to clarify that for humans, it's not poison. It's flavor. It's passion." "You consume it voluntarily?" the gelatinous diplomat asked. "Not just voluntarily," Kalen said. He reached into his inner jacket pocket, pulled out a small glass bottle with a red label reading Hades in a bottle, and held it up. "We crave it." Several of the delegates recoiled. One of them, a sleek, bird-like creature with shimmering feathers, dropped his translation device with a choked whistle. "That bottle contains enough capsaicin to induce neural shutdown in a virile adult," the Jarelian said stiffly. Kalen grinned slightly, unscrewed the cap, and dabbed a drop on the tip of his finger. He popped it into his mouth, winced, and exhaled sharply. "Oh yeah, that's the good stuff." The room erupted with horrified murmurs and alarmed chirps. The variant representative, seated at the far end of the table, fainted outright. "Are you unharmed?" asked the gelatinous ambassador, pulsing nervously. Kalen's eyes watered. "Give me a moment. I sting a bit. Perfectly normal reaction for us." He sat down, fanning his face. "Anyway, Earth has no intention of using hot sauce as a weapon. We just love food that hurts us a little." A long silence followed. The Jarelian finally spoke. "We have arranged a demonstration meal to better understand your species. Threshold. You will dine with selected representatives under controlled conditions." "Will there be milk?" Kalen asked. "Milk? Never mind. Let's get to the dinner part." Later that evening, Kalen was led into a chamber that looked like a cross between a science lab and a 5-star restaurant. A dozen species were seated around a long translucent table. Each place setting had its own emergency medical kit. A drone hovered in with a tray, setting down 3 small dishes in front of him, one with a buffalo wing coated in bright red sauce, one with a piece of jalapeno cornbread, and one with a single, ominously dark chili pepper. "First course," announced the Jarelian host. "We begin with the dish your species calls wing." Kalen picked it up, took a bite, chewed, swallowed, and gave a thumbs up. "Classic." The delegates watched in stunned silence. The bird-like creature leaned forward. "But how do you suppress the pain receptors?" "We don't," Kalen said. "We just ride the wave." The second dish went the same. A few aliens took microscopic samples for analysis, but none dared taste it. Then came the chili pepper. Kalen hesitated. It was a ghost pepper, dried and rehydrated in vinegar and oil. Not for amateurs. He looked around the table. "This one's strong. Might want to keep your distance." "You will not ingest it," the Jarelian said, alarmed. "Its chemical signature exceeds our biochemical hazard thresholds." Kalen popped it into his mouth, chewed slowly, and gave a long, pained groan. Everyone stood up in panic. The gelatinous ambassador began glowing red. "Security. Medical." Kalen waved them off weakly, tears streaming down his face. "I'm fine. Just Hot. He doubled over. Two Jarelians rushed to his side and helped him into a reclining chair. His pulse was elevated, and he was visibly shaking. "You are experiencing toxic shock," the medic said. "No," Kalen gasped. "I'm experiencing flavor." They administered fluids and monitored his vitals. After 20 minutes, he sat up, wiped his face, and asked, "Got any milk this time?" "No," the gelatinous ambassador replied. Kalen sighed. Figures. The following day, the summit's second session was delayed due to the incident. The footage of Kalen eating the pepper had already gone viral across several systems. Reactions ranged from awe to terror. The Jarelians proposed a ban on the trade and transport of all Earth hot sauces pending further research. "This is not an attack on your culture," the bird-like diplomat said. "It is a matter of interspecies safety." Kalen leaned forward slowly. He was still pale and a little shaky. "You're asking us to give up something that's as much a part of us as breathing. You think it's poison. But to us, it's tradition. Celebration. Pain. Yes, but a pain we choose. That matters." The gelatinous ambassador rippled. "Your resilience is noted, but it is not universal." "I get that," Kalen said. "We can label it, warn others, but banning it altogether? That's like banning gravity because someone bumped their head." The room fell quiet again. Then the Jarelian chief diplomat folded his arms. "We propose a countermeasure. A test. Submit a human subject to a controlled escalating spice trial. If the subject survives without unacceptable physiological damage, your cuisine may be permitted under strict regulation." Kalen blinked. "You mean another round? You may choose a different representative." He shook his head. "No, I'll do it." "You suffered acute gastrointestinal distress and borderline cardiac irregularities," the medic warned. "I've eaten gas station shrimp tacos at 2 a.m. after a football game," Kalen said. "I'll manage." Preparations began for the trial. They called it the Gauntlet of Flame. 12 levels of spice, each dish hotter than the last. The final level was made with a lab-synthesized pepper that had never been consumed by any species. The night before the trial, Kalen was visited by a human scientist, Dr. Helena Jerry's, who had been stationed on the Jarelian cruiser for months. "You realize this is insane," she said, checking his charts. "I know. You could rupture your stomach lining. Or worse." "Yeah." Kalen gave her a weak smile. "But it's kinda what we do, isn't it? Eat terrible things, climb ridiculous mountains, jump out of planes. Someone's gotta show them we're not just danger junkies. We're adaptable. You're going to scare the entire galaxy." Kalen chuckled softly. "Then they'll know what they're dealing with." The next day, the gauntlet began. Course after course, Kalen powered through. He sweated, he shook, he cried, but he didn't stop. By the 10th level, his body was visibly struggling. On level 11, he vomited into a containment unit, collapsed briefly, and had to be revived with electrolyte infusions. "Withdraw," the Jarelian ordered. "This is enough." Kalen raised a hand weakly. "One more. I came this far." Level 12 was brought out on a silver tray. A single dumpling, glowing faintly red, placed under a containment dome. Kalen took a deep breath, lifted the dome, and whispered, "Pass the hot sauce." Then he ate it. The dumpling hit Kalen's stomach like a meteor cued to detonate on impact. He didn't scream. He couldn't. His breath locked somewhere between his ribs and whatever dimension his soul had briefly evacuated to. His vision tunneled, ears ringing in a single high note that might have been his nervous system begging for mercy. A Jarelian medic lunged forward. "We're aborting the trial." Kalen slapped the edge of the tray with the back of his hand. "No," his throat rasped like sandpaper dragged across a violin string. "When I was twitching." A vein in his forehead pulsed like it was trying to tunnel to safety. But he was still conscious, and that alone sent a ripple of silence through the observation gallery above. The gelatinous ambassador undulated toward the table, surrounded by several drone recorders. "You have ingested the final stage of the gauntlet. Your vital readings are unstable." Kalen reached for a napkin, missed, and wiped his face with the tablecloth. "Define unstable," he croaked. "Your hepatic enzymes indicate systemic inflammation. You may be experiencing internal mucosal hemorrhaging." "Feels about right." The room remained still for a few seconds before a tall, antlered diplomat finally leaned toward the table. Was there a purpose to this masochistic ritual, or was it simply demonstration for spectacle? Kalen rolled his head to one side, trying to blink moisture back into his eyes. "You asked for proof. I gave it. Now you know why we survive where we shouldn't. We don't avoid pain. We negotiate with it. I find this logic structurally unsound, the antlered being replied. Pain is a warning. For us, it's also a challenge. The Jarelian medic turned to one of the hovering drones. Prepare the stabilization chamber. He requires immediate enteral cooling therapy. 2 drones descended with a gurney, and Kalen was gently lifted off his chair, still clutching the empty dish. As they wheeled him out, he mumbled, "Tell Earth. Next time. Bring ice cream." 3 hours later, in a sterile chamber lined with biofoam and humming softly from the constant adjustment of thermal regulators, Kalen lay submerged to the chest in a nutrient bath that smelled faintly of vanilla and antiseptic. His skin had stopped radiating heat like a dying star, and his pulse had evened out to something approaching human. Dr. Helena Jerry stood at his bedside, arms folded. She had a tablet in one hand and a look on her face that suggested she was deciding which part of him to yell at first. "You know your intestinal lining is inflamed to the point of translucency," she said. "I'll never look at dumplings the same way." Kalen replied, voice hoarse but stable. "You're lucky your stomach didn't perforate, and your renal system's flushing out stress hormones like you ran a marathon through a volcano. Would have been easier." She tossed the tablet onto a nearby surface. "The aliens are debating whether to classify your performance as a cultural demonstration or a medical emergency." He adjusted the pillow behind his head. "I vote art installation. You're unbelievable." The door hissed open, and a Jarelian delegate entered, this one shorter than the others, with a set of metallic bands around one arm. A diplomatic observer. "I bring reports from the council," the delegate said, ignoring Helena's sideways glance. "The footage of your gauntlet completion has been distributed across 6 systems. Interpretations vary." "Let me guess," Kalen said. "Half think I'm a hero, half think I'm a lunatic." "Approximately." "There is a distinct increase in trade requests for terrestrial culinary samples, though many are requesting it in non-lethal formats." "Well, good luck with that." The Jarelian stepped closer. "The council is divided. Some see your endurance as evidence of human culinary recklessness. Others interpret it as a form of adaptive neurochemical conditioning. I call it Friday night." Helena shot him a glare. "You're not helping your case." The Jarelian continued. "A proposition has been made. A cultural exchange, limited in scope. Controlled environments. Supervised tasting events. Earth would be allowed to distribute culinary samples under strict hazard labeling." Kalen raised an eyebrow. "You want to open a galactic hot sauce bar?" "Not precisely, but a sanctioned trial program. Recipes, preparation techniques, and safety thresholds. With your assistance." "You want me to teach a class?" "More of a consultancy. You would be observed. Your methods documented. Your reactions analyzed." Helena groaned. "He doesn't even measure when he cooks." "I do," Kalen said, sitting up slightly. "I measure with my soul." They ignored him. The Jarelian produced a small data cube and set it beside the bed. "If you accept, your actions will be officially reclassified as cultural demonstration, not biothreat testing." Kalen took the cube, turned it over in his hand. "And if I say no? Then Earth's culinary imports will remain suspended, pending further investigation." He sighed. "Guess I'm staying for the semester." Later that cycle, the first of the human culinary acclimation sessions began. The alien lab had been converted into a cross between a kitchen and an autopsy suite. Stainless steel counters, environmental containment fields, and a dozen wide-eyed diplomats seated at observation stations. Kalen stood in front of a cooking array, wearing a fire-retardant apron. "Today, we're starting simple. Salsa." A tentacle being raised 3 of its appendages. "Define simplicity. It's a mix of vegetables, some acid, herbs, and a little heat." "A little by your standards?" "Everything's relative." He diced tomatoes with swift, casual flicks, tossing them into a bowl. "You ever see someone juggle knives while blindfolded?" "Cooking's a bit like that, except the knives are on fire and the blindfold is self-imposed." Another delegate, this one crystalline, bust. "Why do your species willingly consume volatile chemical irritants?" Kalen added chopped onion and jalapeno. "We evolved with them. Plants made them to keep us away. We took that as an invitation." He squeezed lime juice into the bowl, stirred, and passed the finished mixture to the drone servers. Each delegate received a micro sample smaller than a grain of rice. One by one, they analyzed it. Some used external sensors. Others tested by contact. A few brave ones tasted. The antlered diplomat from the trial winced after touching his sample to his lips. Why does it feel like my face is unraveling? That's cilantro. You're either born to love it or to curse it. The bird-like delegate from the initial summit leaned in. Is this the mildest preparation in your repertoire? Not even close. But it's a start. Over the following week, Kalen introduced them to curry, kimchi, wasabi, and something he called standard American barbecue sauce, which elicited a strong physiological response in two aquatic species who claimed it triggered ancestral memories of predator encounters. Each session came with new questions. Why do humans cry while eating? Why does your species associate pain with pleasure? Is there a ritualistic element to these meals? Eventually, a new term emerged in council reports: human culinary paradox. The notion that humanity's food culture was a constant tension between pleasure and suffering, tradition and experimentation, safety and danger. At the end of the 10th session, the gelatinous ambassador approached Kalen, this time without a translator drone. I have tasted what you call ghost pepper salsa. My consciousness briefly detached from my core matrix. I saw my progenitor. Sounds like it went well. I have also begun dreaming. Of flavor. Of fire. Kalen nodded. Welcome to the club. A few days later, a compact envoy ship arrived from the Council of Bioethics, carrying 3 medical observers and a legal translator. They requested a private audience with Kalen. Ingestion of substances that induce involuntary neural rerouting is considered a controlled experience under Article 17, said the tallest observer, a being wrapped in a robe of shifting colors. Kalen leaned back in his chair. Are you saying hot sauce is a drug? Possibly. Or a spiritual catalyst. Or a weaponized cultural artifact. Or lunch. The translator chimed in. The distinction matters. If it's categorized as a controlled ingestion medium, Earth may need to submit to licensing procedures and interspecies safety audits. Kalen shrugged. Fine. But if we're doing this officially, I want royalties. Royalties? Yeah. If you're going to sell my grandma's chili recipe across the galaxy, I want a cut. The observers exchanged glances. We will take this under advisement. As they left, Helena entered, tossing a sealed packet onto the table. Your vitals are stabilizing, though your stomach's going to be sensitive for a month. Kalen picked up the packet. Are these electrolyte crackers? No spice. No seasoning. Just bland, safe sustenance. He opened it and took a bite. Tastes like regret. Good. Maybe next time you'll think twice before trying to impress the intergalactic community by nearly immolating your esophagus. He grinned. No promises. Outside the observation window, a group of alien delegates were gathered around a makeshift grill. One of them was holding up a skewer of marinated tofu, cautiously applying a tiny drop of sriracha. Kalen watched them with something like pride. Think they're ready for buffalo wings yet? Helena groaned. Don't push it. By the 3rd week, the novelty of Kalen's presence had shifted from spectacle to utility. What began as an interstellar oddity, the human who consumed culinary napalm for recreation, had evolved into something far stranger, a diplomatic asset. Earth's delegation, previously regarded with amused caution, now received invitations to collaborative panels, cultural roundtables, and, most notably, the inaugural Galactic Edibility Symposium. The symposium was held aboard the Threxian Concorde, a neutral vessel retrofitted into a floating research campus. It housed laboratories, diplomatic chambers, and, as Kalen soon discovered, an industrial-grade kitchen suite with variable atmosphere controls and a sterilization system that hissed like a suspicious snake. Kalen stepped into the cooking arena with a satchel of Earth ingredients slung over his shoulder. The audience seating had been adapted for multi-species anatomy. Floating platforms, gel immersion tanks, perches. Over 30 delegates from 17 species had shown up. Several wore biohaptic suits designed to simulate human digestive responses. A tall being with skin like burnished copper approached, her limbs jointed in odd places. You're the human chef? Technically, I'm a diplomat, Kalen said. But yeah, I cook. You will prepare a dish that represents your species' core values. Just one. Time constraints. You have one rotation. He nodded. Right. So, soul food it is. He unpacked ingredients. Collard greens, smoked turkey legs, black-eyed peas, cornmeal, and a small vial of seasoning labeled, "Keep away from eyes." The copper-skinned observer leaned closer. You prepare sustenance associated with your cultural heritage. Exactly. Food that tells a story, not just heat for the sake of it. Real spice is about layering. He soaked the beans in nutrient gel, simmered the greens with smoked meat, and started whisking cornmeal batter. The air filled with unfamiliar aromas, smoky, earthy, sharp with vinegar, and a hint of something citrusy. Several delegates began recording. During the frying stage, a gelatinous observer began to vibrate. Kalen lowered the heat and waved a fan. Too intense. I am experiencing olfactory saturation. But continue. He plated each dish on heat-resistant trays, then addressed the room without preamble. This dish isn't about pain. It's about memory. It's about surviving hard things and still finding ways to feed each other. One by one, the delegates received their samples. Most used intermediary tools to touch or scan the food. A few had adapted enough to attempt micro-tasting. Responses varied from cautious awe to full-body shudders. One aquatic species began humming. Your ingredients, the copper-skinned diplomat said, are not inherently hazardous. Yet combined, they create a complex chemical profile. That's the point. You transform base components into emotional stimuli. Kalen nodded. It's how we say things that words can't. Hours later, in a debrief chamber retrofitted with low-frequency lighting and breathable humidity for multiple species, a final deliberation took place. Earth's culinary exports were under review for permanent classification. A crystalline judge rotated slowly. We have analyzed the data. The human dietary model is not intrinsically weaponized, but your species' tolerance thresholds remain anomalous. We don't deny that, Kalen said, but we're not pushing this stuff on anyone. We just want the option to share it. The copper-skinned diplomat tapped her interface. We propose a compromise. Earth cuisine will be permitted under Tier 3 voluntary hazard classification. Distribution will be limited to certified diplomatic zones. Helena, seated nearby, raised an eyebrow. You're creating a licensing framework for spicy food? It is the most rational path. Your culinary practices are neither universally dangerous nor universally tolerable. This tiered approach ensures transparency. Kalen leaned back, finally exhaling. So that's a yes with paperwork. Correct. By the next cycle, the first Interstellar Culinary Licensing Center was operational. Kalen was its inaugural certified instructor. He spent his days guiding alien volunteers through basic tolerance training, controlled sampling, flavor identification, gastrointestinal acclimation. He taught them how to read Earth spice labels, how to neutralize capsaicin exposure with dairy analogs, and perhaps most surprisingly how to enjoy the burn. One afternoon, a Varanth aide approached him after class. I consumed a mild pepper extract today, the aide said. It induced lucid dreams and temporary euphoria. Sounds about right. I would like to try something stronger. After my shift. You sure? I have prepared a containment pod in case of involuntary thrashing. Well, that's the spirit. Back in the medical bay, Helena ran a final scan on Kalen's digestive tract. She frowned, then smiled despite herself. Your stomach lining is regenerating normally. No signs of long-term erosion. Guess I'm tougher than I look. You're reckless. I prefer culturally committed. She handed him a sealed envelope. From Earth's delegation. They're offering you a permanent post. In food diplomacy? In intercultural resilience consulting. But yes, mostly food. He opened it, skimmed the details, and folded it away. I'll take it. But on one condition. What? I get to name the first certified interstellar hot sauce. Really? Yeah. I've already got one in mind. Weeks later, on a satellite station orbiting neutral territory, a small shop opened its doors. A glowing sign above it read, Humanity's fire flavors that challenge reality. Inside, shelves lined with carefully labeled bottles bore names like Tongue Breaker, Solar Flare Relish, and Regretful Triumph. Each came with a holographic warning, a species compatibility chart, and a tiny hologram of Kalen giving a thumbs up. Delegates from across the galaxy came in pairs or groups, daring each other to sample the sauces under supervision. Some laughed, some cried. One even composed a poem about the sensation of eating a small sun. Kalen stood behind the counter, handing out samples with the casual grace of someone who'd once nearly died for a chili dumpling and lived to turn it into a business model. Helena walked in during a lull, holding up a new data tablet. Your class has been added to the core curriculum for diplomatic training. What's it called? Human Resilience Through Culinary Exposure. He grinned. Catchy. No vomiting in the first week is now considered a passing grade. Progress. She scanned the room as a Jarelian carefully dabbed a drop of magma whisper onto a gluten-free cracker. You know, you've changed how they see us. I didn't do anything special. You nearly liquefied your insides for cultural understanding. Yeah, but the flavor was worth it. She rolled her eyes. I'm going to get lunch. Want anything? Surprise me. Just make it. Mild. She laughed as she walked out. Kalen turned back to the counter, where a nervous-looking diplomat extended a trembling appendage. First time? Yes. We have prepared our will in case of complications. He handed over a spoon. Then let's find your limit. Outside the station, space hummed quietly. Inside, the air was thick with spice, curiosity, and something almost like harmony. Everything had changed. And somehow, it all started with a pepper.